And welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. As we welcome you back into studio, Vasu Vaddiparty, for the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football show, as we're here live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Thanks to everybody for joining us live. If you happen to miss it, then feel free to download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, SoundCloud, anywhere you get your podcast. Look for the logo up there in the right-hand corner for the Make the Money and Run podcast. I'm solo today, Charlie O on assignment. Hopefully Intern Nic will be on with us about halfway through the show with his unique takes on sports and sports wagering, player props, daily fantasy sports, as well as fantasy football. It is a Friday football show, so we will get going with the NFL. How about the NFL? Boy, the New England Patriots, they are on a roll. Did anybody think Mac Jones was going to lead them to where they are today? 203 yards, a 25-0 win for the New England Patriots. How you doing, Dan Angst? I know you're a big Patriots fan. We thought the Falcons may play well at home. They did not, obviously. 25-0, 5 in a row for New England. They shut out the Falcons. This is no rematch of Super Bowl 51 for sure. Matt Ryan, 155 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Mac Jones, 203 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Now 7-4. They're one game. They're actually technically even, but they're one game back of the Buffalo Bills because it's the loss column, just like baseball. The Bills only have 3 losses. The Patriots have 4. So maybe it's a matter of time before they catch them. But who would have thought that the New England Patriots would be where they are, and all of a sudden they've got a chance to lead the division. If the Buffalo Bills lose on Sunday, the Patriots will be in first place technically by that one win, even though they'll be even in the loss column. Buffalo at 6-3. Mac Jones, 204 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Stevenson, 63 yards. They rushed for 130 yards total. Defense shut down the Falcons. One missed field goal by Koo kept them off the board. First time the Falcons have been shut out at home since 1988. They're 4-6 now, and they had a chance. They were at 4-5. They had a chance to be in the playoffs to kind of keep their way about it. But right now, as I look at the standings, they're 4-6 in the expanded playoff format. We talked about it yesterday. In the NFC, they're still from 6 to 11. They're either 5-4 for New Orleans, 5-5 for Carolina, 4-5 for Minnesota and San Francisco. Minnesota has the tiebreaker. Philadelphia has the tiebreaker over Atlanta for beating Atlanta at the beginning of the year. So Philadelphia is now 10th, Atlanta 11th. So really only 2 games out with 6 to go. The rest of the season, 7 to go. It's a 17-game schedule. Everybody at 10 games. Saints at 9, Carolina, Philadelphia and Atlanta are at 10, San Francisco and Minnesota at 9. So everybody will catch up with each other by the time the buys come this week. By the way, the buys for your fantasy football players and also for you fans out there of these teams, the Denver Broncos will be on their bye this week. They will come back the following week. They will host the Los Angeles Chargers in a big AFC West matchup, depending on what the Chargers do this weekend. And the Los Angeles Rams coming off of 2 horrendous losses. Tennessee at home, no Derrick Henry. They got run over. 49ers just beat them up on Monday night, 31-10. The Rams, 2 losses in a row. They're at 7-3. They're in the 5th slot in the NFC playoffs right now. Thanks to everybody on Facebook. Hey, David Andrews, how are you? Thanks very much for watching in. YouTube and Twitter. Also download, subscribe anywhere you get it. Please send comments. Please rate and review. We love hearing the feedback from everybody as well, too. So the Patriots, 7-4, 5 straight on the Bills' heels. Falcons 4-6, still an outside shot in the NFC wildcard. Some of the games to preview this weekend. We'll get to the Lions in a second. We talked about this yesterday. Charlie and I did. The Lions and Browns. The Lions 0-8-1. They're not going to the playoffs, but they are playing hard. They played Pittsburgh hard. And granted, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers without Ben Roethlisberger, but they played hard, and they've got a chance to take apart the Browns here. The Browns about an 11.5-point favorite. We'll get to that. We'll get to the Lions in a second. Baker Mayfield is going to play. Anybody question Baker Mayfield toughness is really barking up the wrong tree, because Baker Mayfield has basically a torn shoulder, torn labrum. His legs are bad. His throwing arm is bad because it's his throwing shoulder. And they're going to get Nick Chubb back. They're going to get Felton back off injured reserve, off the COVID list. So that's going to help the running game a little bit. Are they 11.5 points better? I guess we'll find out. We'll let you know on our social media picks on Sunday at noon. Again, 3 times on Saturday, every day at 6 o'clock during the week for latest news and selections for each day. Lions and Browns, one game there. The 49ers and Jaguars, which Jacksonville Jaguars is going to show up? More importantly, which in the Bay Area here where I live, which 49ers team is going to show up? The team that played the Rams on Monday night or the team that played the Arizona Cardinals the previous Sunday without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins, and injured Chase Edmonds? They got worked up by the Cardinals 2 weeks ago, but the Rams, I don't know what it is about Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, but he kind of owns Sean McVay. No matter how bad the 49ers are or how bad either team is, the 49ers seem to have the Rams number 2 years ago on their Super Bowl run. For the Rams, the 49ers ended up picking a last-second victory in 2019 when they weren't going anywhere. The Super Bowl year, they were able to come back on the Rams, but the year before, they beat up on the Rams twice when they weren't in it. And then last year, they went to L.A. and beat them in SoFi Stadium on a game-winning field goal by Robbie Gould late in the game. So the Jaguars, coming off that big win against Buffalo, 9-6, they held the Buffalo Bills offense. Get this, the Buffalo Bills offense, who at the time, number one in scoring offense, number one in scoring defense, to 2 field goals. Jacksonville got 3. Last week, they fell behind quick, 17-6 to Indianapolis. They get a couple of touchdowns late. Indy can only get another field goal. Their defense is really good. Jacksonville's defense is really good. Whatever they're doing defensively, they got to keep that up because right now the 49ers, they can be one-dimensional with the running game. That secondary is really good for Jacksonville. Carson Wentz had a tough time in the second half. A 10.5-point underdog against the Colts last week. Jacksonville had a chance to win the game late. They were inside the red zone, but they end up losing 20-17. Jacksonville 2-7 now. They're not going anywhere from a playoff standpoint, but let's take a look at it from the 49ers standpoint. 49ers are 4-5 after their win over the Rams last Monday night. They're in 9th place. They lose the tiebreaker to Minnesota based on conference games. They are 1 game back. They're even with the Carolina Panthers, who have the last spot. They're 1 game back of the 6th seed New Orleans Saints at 5-4. So we're looking at 6. It's New Orleans at 6, Carolina 7, Minnesota 8, San Francisco 9. Any one of these teams could win this weekend. Any one of these teams could lose. So we're talking about a 4-spot swing between 6 and 9 for these 4 teams. The Panthers, the Saints, the Vikings, the 49ers. Philadelphia is playing this weekend as well. They have the Saints, so that's a big game for them if they want to find themselves back into the race. The Saints and Eagles, the Saints are an underdog going into Philadelphia. Philadelphia's offense has been good, but the defense has given up a lot of points. And they might have Alvin Kamara back talking about the Saints. So we'll have all the latest news on that on Sunday when the injury reports come out, and maybe even later this afternoon. But the Saints and Eagles are one of the big games this weekend. Colts and Bills, we talked about. The Colts and Bills we haven't talked about. The Colts barely got away with Jacksonville last week. A 20-17 victory. Did not cover the 10.5, stayed under the total. The Bills, we told you about them losing to Jacksonville. They beat up on the Jets last week. Face it, who hasn't beaten up on the Jets this year? Only a couple of wins for the Jets. One of them includes Tennessee, and the other includes Cincinnati, so they can play. They're going to go with Joe Flacco. The Jets are, by the way, and we'll get to that in a second. The Jets are going to play this weekend, but Joe Flacco going to start for the New York Jets. But the Indianapolis Colts, they are in the 10th spot. They're 5-5. The Bills, the number 2 team in the AFC, behind Tennessee, they're 6-3. They're tied with Baltimore for the 2nd and 3rd spots. Kansas City, who was worried about Kansas City? Oh, everybody was for the first 3 weeks, but now they're 6-4. They lead the AFC West, but the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills tied at 6-3. The Bills have to show their offense that they did against the Jets. Colts defense has given up yards. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. Buffalo doesn't really run the ball. Josh Allen runs most of the time for them. Their offensive line is not that great at protecting Josh Allen. He has to make a lot of plays impromptu, but they are where they are because of what they've done. The points allowed for the Buffalo Bills is still number 2 actually, and then they're number 2 in defense as well, giving up points. So Buffalo, Indianapolis, it's a rematch of last year's AFC wildcard weekend game where Buffalo sneaked out a victory 29-27 over Indianapolis. That was a Phillip Rivers game. Buffalo was favored 7 in that game, in the wildcard game, and sure enough, they're favored by 7 in this game as well. The Baltimore Ravens, coming off that huge loss 2 weeks ago to Miami on the Thursday night. They lost 9-point favorite to the Miami Dolphins on the road. And they're 6-3, as we said. They lead the They lead the AFC North right now by 1 game over. Actually, they're tied with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has the tie. They're both at 3 losses. Cincinnati coming off their bye is 5-4. Cleveland 5-5. So everybody's race still 2 games back is Cleveland from Baltimore. Cincinnati had the best record in the conference 3 weeks ago after their win over Baltimore, but now they're in 3rd place. We don't know if the Steelers are going to get back Ben Roethlisberger this week as well. But in terms of Baltimore, they're going to get Chicago this weekend, a very improved Justin Fields. They came off their bye from week 10 after the Monday night against the Steelers, where they had every chance to win that game. So the Ravens, Bears, the Ravens about a 5-point favorite, 44.5. Justin Fields, they're going to have to stop the running game. Lamar Jackson, they're going to have to put pressure. Khalil Mack, Robert, the kid from Dallas that ended up in Chicago, they're going to have to put some pressure on him. Leonard Floyd, going to have to put some pressure on him as well, too. Leonard Floyd with the Rams. They got to Lamar Jackson a few weeks back, but he can be got. You watch the Miami defense against Lamar Jackson. They suffocated him from the outside in instead of rushing straight up the middle. And so if the Bears can do that with Khalil Mack, then they'll be able to. Robert Quinn, the other defensive end for the Bears, coming over from the Lions, formerly of the Cowboys. They've got to put pressure. The linebackers have got to stop the running game. The DBs, they've had a pretty good year. They can stop the Ravens wide receivers. The throwing game, not the best part of Lamar Jackson's game, at least this year. He's had some good years where he was the MVP a couple of years ago, but this year not the same. They're going to have to put pressure on him. They're going to have to stop the running game. The running back situation, we know about the Ravens all year. They did not have a good running back situation. They traded Mark Ingram before the beginning of the year and then lost all 3 running backs. So they're really relying on guys like Tyson Williams and people like that to be able to help the running game and help Lamar Jackson out. If your quarterback's leading your every game in rushing while throwing the ball, that's not usually a good sign. But Lamar Jackson is a special talent. The Bears are going to have to figure out how to get back in this if they even want to get back into the playoff picture. The 3-6, Green Bay 8-2. They're going to win that division. Minnesota 4-5. We said in the NFC North, Chicago 3-6. And if it weren't for the Detroit Lions at 0-8-1, the Bears would be in last place as well, too. But we've got a quarterback. I say I'm still a Bears fan. We've got a quarterback in Justin Fields who looks to improve every week and seems like they've got the right mojo going in. All right, Saints-Eagles we talked about. The Tennessee Titans played New Orleans last week. They did not cover the 3-point spread. They had a big lead on the Saints. Saints came back with 2 touchdowns late, a 2-point conversion away from tying the game. They're going to get the Houston Texans about a 10-point favorite. 44, I think, was the total. But the Titans 8-2, the best record in the AFC. The best record in the AFC. They have the 1 seed. They're 2 games better than Buffalo. No Derrick Henry. They're doing it with Ryan Tannehill. A.J. Brown has had a good year. Julio Jones was injured last week. Ferkser, the tight end, has been really good. That defense, the defensive secondary, they hassled Matthew Stafford last week. They pressured him on the front line. Last week, they got to Trevor Siemian for a few sacks as well. Caused a couple of turnovers as well, but the Saints able to make the march down the field to get that touchdown to not only come close in the game, but take away the Titans bettors that had the Tennessee Titans -3. Houston Texans, we can't imagine that the Texans are going to upset them, but a lot of people didn't think the Dolphins were going to beat the Ravens either. And so away it goes with another week in the NFL in terms of upsets. So the Tennessee Titans are looking to avoid an upset. You can't look past your opponent. Houston Texans coming to town. They're a hungry team. They're like the Detroit Lions. They're a hungry team as well, as they are 1-8. They got their opening week victory, and you thought it wasn't going to be that bad, and they've lost 8 in a row since then. So not a good way to go for David Culley in his first year with the Houston Texans. It looks like Tyrod Taylor is going to start for the Texans at 1-8 this weekend against the Titans. Green Bay, Minnesota. Go back to the NFC North. We just mentioned it. 8-2 for Green Bay. Vikings at 4-5. Vikings playing better though. Last few weeks they had Baltimore on the ropes. 2 weeks ago they had the Chargers. The Chargers were on the ropes. They ended up beating them in Los Angeles. Not an easy thing to do. So the Ravens and the Chargers, they almost came away with 2 victories. You take away that, they'd be 6-3, and they'd be right there in the mix with the wild card. They'd still be behind Green Bay, but they'd be right there in the mix of the wild card if you can figure out how to play defense late in the game. Minnesota, figure that out this week, and you got Aaron Rodgers coming into your building. Defense has been great the last 2 weeks against Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson. So you just have to apply that to Aaron Rodgers this week and maybe get a shot. You're a 1-point underdog. You got your home crowd behind you. Dalvin Cook is back. He's run the ball really well. He ran the ball last week really well against a pretty good run defense in the Chargers. So the Bengals and Raiders. Minnesota is going to have a chance to make some hay here in the NFC North. I don't know if they'll catch Green Bay, but certainly this will be a big proposition for them to get that win and move into the tie with Carolina. Carolina will have Washington this week. We'll get to the lines in a second. Bengals Raiders. Bengals, we said, had the best record 3 weeks ago, 5-4 in third, half game back of the Steelers, who have 3 losses. The Ravens have 3 losses. They're not that far away from getting back to the top of the AFC North right now. The Raiders, all the things that have gone on with the Raiders, they are still in the mix in the AFC West, though Kansas City has taken over. Everybody with 4 losses in that division. Denver with 5-5, losing to Philadelphia last weekend. They're on their bye this week, as we said, so Denver will not have to worry about losing a game this week or falling behind any of these teams. Kansas City 6-4, the Chargers 5-4, the Raiders 5-4 by virtue of the head-to-head on the Monday night game. But the Raiders, they're going to have to come in. Joe Burrow, no easy task to stop that offense. Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, they're having a good year. They are having a good year, probably a lot better year than a lot of Cincinnati people thought. I don't know if they thought they were going to be able to contend for the division like people in Cleveland thought. I'm sure that makes the people in Cincinnati very happy that the Cleveland Browns are struggling a little bit as well, too. So Cincinnati visiting Las Vegas. Cincinnati a slight favorite. Believe the total is 50. We'll have all the lines in a second. The Cardinals and Seahawks. Kyler Murray looks like he's going to play this week. Seattle looked just awful. Russell Wilson's first game back in 5 weeks looked awful. Got shut out by Green Bay on the road. Green Bay's defense gets a lot of credit, but they could not stop the Green Bay. They could not stop the Green Bay offense on defense. 17-0 was the final score. They played okay, but the Green Bay defense bent a little bit, but did not break. Russell Wilson, 2 interceptions in the end zone to prevent even field goals from happening. 2 touchbacks happened at that point, and they end up getting shut out 17-0. Seattle at 3-6. They're a game back of the 49ers for third place, 3 back of the Rams, and 4 back of the Arizona Cardinals. This could be the week as far as the wild card. We said the wild card standing, 6 losses does not put you out of it right now. They're still in it from the standpoint of 6 losses, but they're behind the Giants. They're behind Washington. Atlanta, who lost yesterday, is 4-6. Philadelphia is in the 10th spot at 4-6. So a win here and losses by the 10 to 14 teams, 10 to 13 ranked teams could put them right back in a spot for a wild card situation. Some interesting scenario, 17-game season with everything going on. The Steelers and Chargers will play Sunday night. We don't know about Roethlisberger yet, if he's going to come back off the COVID list. The Chargers coming off the loss to Minnesota, a 6-point favorite. I'm sure that's based on the fact that Roethlisberger is still questionable for the game. But the Chargers have to step it up on defense against a Pittsburgh happy pass team that's come off a couple of victories. The tie against Detroit, probably really disappointing as well, too. Let's check Facebook out here real quick. Wanted to get some Facebook comments on here. Smokey the Cat. Elijah Moore or Kadarius Toney, also Russell or Tua this week. Thanks. What's the other one you got? Bateman, Gallup, Deontay Freeman, or Pollard. All right, let me think about that. I will get back to you, Smokey the Cat. Thanks for watching on YouTube, of course. We'll get to the point spread lines in a second as well. But we appreciate it. I will get to those in a minute after the break when we get back to that. But let me finish up the rest of the Steelers-Chargers here. Chargers 6-50 with the 6 and 44. Well, we'll have the lines in a second anyway, but Chargers favored by 6. The Roethlisberger situation up in the air, so we'll see how that goes in SoFi on Sunday night. NBC will broadcast that game 8 o'clock. But the game of the week, the Cowboys and the Chiefs. The Cowboys, 2 losses away from being perfect right now. The bad loss against Denver, the opening night loss against Tampa Bay. They are right there in the NFC, 7-2. They're a half game back of the Arizona Cardinals and Green Bay Packers. They're in the 3rd spot. They've already had their bye. Green Bay, Arizona have not, and that's the only difference right now. But they are one bad Denver game away from being at the top of the NFC conference standings. How about that? Cooper Rush with that Minnesota Vikings game as well. Looks like Prescott's okay. Looks like they're coming back into form here a little bit. They had – where were they at last week? They had the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, yeah, boy. Should have known. I don't know why we took the Falcons last night coming off a 43-3 loss and then a quick turnaround against the Patriots. But they put up some points. Defense came through. This is a different Patrick Mahomes now. This is a different Chiefs team going on out there. This is the first time they're 2.5-point favorites for Kansas City. They're 6-4. They lead the AFC West by a half game over the Raiders and the Chargers, we said, and also a game over the Broncos, who are 5-5. This is the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. I just read this morning, and it kind of stunned me because the Chiefs have been really good since Patrick Mahomes came into the league. The first year he sat behind Alex Smith, and clearly he took over for Alex Smith the next year, and that's when Alex went to Washington to finish out his career. But Patrick Mahomes and the Cowboys, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs going up against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. First of all, the total's 56, so a lot of people are expecting points in this game. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites, and what's significant about that is the Chiefs. This is the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career that the Chiefs are a 3-point favorite or less going into a weekend. The first time ever, and he's been there 4 years, and they have had some situations where they weren't very good, but he's never been an underdog. They've never been favored below 3 against the opponents, and so this will be a test. The Dallas Cowboys. Diggs has played well, a Rookie of the Year candidate for the Cowboys. The big game on Sunday afternoon. I believe Fox has the game on Sunday. I'll have to check here real quick. It is on Fox, along with the Cardinals and Seahawks game for those that are in those areas, and then the Bengals Raiders, the only other 4:00 game in the matchups. But the Cowboys Chiefs are the way to go. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds on the Make the Money and Run podcast, we will talk about the NFL lines. We'll get to some college football, but I want to make sure we get the lines out to everybody as well too. Intern Nick's supposed to join us as well, and we'll get to the fantasy football questions from Smokey the Cat right after as I look it up. All right, back in 30 seconds on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vaddiparty, your solo host today for the Friday Football Show. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vaddiparty here with you. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. If you're in Silicon Valley, check out on the border of San Jose and Cupertino, the Britannia Arms there, especially on Sundays for NFL Sunday ticket, as well as your weekly specials that they have all around Silicon Valley in that area. Lots of companies around. Go in there, get your happy hour as well too. But if you're in Capitola, if you're near Santa Cruz, on the beach, on vacation, or just enjoying a nice afternoon breeze, head on over to the Britannia Arms in Capitola. NFL Sunday ticket there as well. Breakfast, lunch, all the best British pub food and drink you can get in Northern California. The Britannia Arms of Cupertino, the Britannia Arms of Capitola. All right. Thanks to everybody on Facebook again. Pinche Rene, know him. David Andrews, thank you very much on YouTube as well. Let me get back to that comment here we had for Smokey the Cat. Thanks again. By the way, pass it on to all your friends on YouTube. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. So Elijah Moore, I'm trying to remember. I don't have it offhand. Maybe you can help me with this. Kadarius Toney, a wide receiver for Philadelphia. So it sounds like you're looking for a wide receiver. I'm going to have to remember where Elijah Moore is. But as far as your quarterback question, I got to go with Russell Wilson. They're at home. He's coming off just a rusty start, not being in for 5 weeks. He's my fantasy football quarterback. Arizona's defense has been okay this year. I got to think Russell Wilson would be the way to go. Miami has the New York Jets. They've given up some yards too, but for some reason, the Jets and Dolphins, they play really low-scoring games. And if you're looking for points, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of points from Tua Tagovailoa this week. I would go with Russell Wilson there. Philadelphia has they have the Saints this week. I probably would go with Elijah Moore. I'll have to look further on that, but you can check back at 6:00 on the social media. I'll make sure I have an answer for you. I haven't seen a lot out of Kadarius Toney this year, but I'm going to have to look up Elijah Moore right now while we're doing this. But it's a very interesting question. And then your flex question, as I look up Elijah Moore here, Bateman from the Ravens, Gallup from the Cowboys, Deontay Foreman or Pollard. I got to go with Michael Gallup because the Chiefs' defense has been very, very suspect. They've been 31 or 32 in defensive metrics this whole year, and I got to think that that the Cowboys can score some points against. They can score some points against the Chiefs, and of course, Kansas City very capable of scoring points as well too. But you got to think that even with CeeDee Lamb there and Amari Cooper coming off an injury the last couple of weeks, Michael Gallup, they go to a lot of three wide receiver sets. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't run the ball as much this year. It looks like Prescott's back to normal and back healthy. Certainly, the game against Atlanta certainly paved the way. Now, your only problem there is if it's a blowout one way or the other, then you're going to have to worry about not getting as many passes up. But of the guys you have here, I have to go with Michael Gallup as your flex player for Smokey the Cat. We appreciate the comments from him as well too. All right, back on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Let's get to the NFL lines. Let's start with the morning games here. We ran through the scenarios for each of the games here. Cleveland Browns 11.5, 43.5 against a very tough-minded. Believe it or not, they're a tough-minded Lions team. They played Pittsburgh very tough. No Roethlisberger, I get it. Browns have been up and down the whole time. 11.5 favorite, 43.5. You know how I feel about laying more than a touchdown in the NFL anyway. 11.5 seems to be a lot for Detroit because it all depends on if Goff's going to play too. David Blah, who started a couple of years ago on Thanksgiving against the Bears, he ended up going 0-5 the rest of the year after that start. But on Thanksgiving, by the way, they'll play the Bears again on Thanksgiving. So, but 11.5, if it's David Blah, boy, I just don't like laying 11.5 for Cleveland. San Francisco 6-45. We talked about Jacksonville's defense. Do not take them for granted. Jacksonville's offense, Trevor Lawrence seems like he's getting better every week. Chanot at wide receiver. They've got good pieces out there. They've got three good running backs. Carlos Hyde is one of the running backs out there. The rookie of the year from last year, James Robinson, is also there. And you mix that running game. They nearly pulled off the upset in Indianapolis. They won 2 weeks ago at home against Buffalo. 6 points, almost a touchdown. You think this is recency bias based from Monday Night Football for the 49ers? It's a lot to lay a touchdown against Jacksonville. You got to think Jacksonville might come out and keep this close. Buffalo, Indianapolis, one of the better games of the week. Indianapolis in 10th. They're 5-5, not that far out from a playoff spot. Buffalo's second in the AFC. 7-49.5. I think this was the exact line in the wild card game last year where Buffalo was favored by 7 against Phillip Rivers and the Colts. Of course, there's no Rivers. It is a Carson Wentz-led team. Jonathan Taylor, now that Derrick Henry is out for the rest of the year, Jonathan Taylor leads the NFL in rushing. 49.5 the total. Buffalo struggled the last two weeks. 2 out of 3 weeks they've struggled. The Jets, they had the Jets last week. They put up 48 points on the Jets last week, 45 points on the Jets last week. But, 7-49.5. You just have to wait till Sunday for all the metrics to come out. Miami 3.5, 44.5. Our YouTube follower, Smokey the Cat, Tua Tagovailoa, starting for Miami. Joe Flacco starting for the Jets, 44.5, 3.5 there on the road. Boy, the Jets are going to have they always play Miami tough throughout the history, no matter if both teams are good or one team's good, one team's bad. That's an AFC East rivalry game. Lots of good defense in that game. Robert Sala's defense playing better. They've got a pretty good pass rush. Not sure if Tagovailoa Tua is still ready, and he seems a little rusty to me still a little bit. So I would have to think that this will be a low-scoring game like it was against Houston a few weeks ago as well. Carolina 3.5 at home against the Washington football team. We saw what Washington did against Tampa Bay last week. Boy, they came out and beat them, 12-point underdog, beat Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, set them back a little bit, moved them down to 4th in the NFC rankings. Carolina will have Christian McCaffrey. They're thinking about starting Cam Newton on Sunday. That hasn't been made official yet, but Sam Darnold, not ready. PJ Walker, he's a good backup. He's done well by them for these last few years. He played for Matt Rule at Temple, so PJ Walker there as well too. But McCaffrey, a big difference there. Washington has a pretty good offense behind Taylor Heineke. Gibson, McKissick at running back. Terry McLaurin's a star wide receiver. They've got their tight end. The former 49er tight end, is there as well too. I know him by numbers, but 3.5 against Washington for Carolina. Carolina at 5-5. They hold the 7th spot right now. Washington with 6 losses. They're 3-6. A win here and some help, and they could be right back in it as well. Baltimore 5 and 44.5 at the Bears. We said the Bears have to get the pass rush on Lamar Jackson. Secondary's got to shut down the wide receivers. Lamar Jackson's got to be contained. I don't think the Bears are worried about the running game so much from Baltimore, but you definitely have to put the pressure, as Miami did on Lamar Jackson 2 Thursdays ago. The difference is Baltimore has 10 days off from the previous Thursday against Miami, where they were a 9-point favorite, did not even win the game 20-10. They didn't even get more than 10 points against a very tough Miami Dolphins defense. So that's what we were talking about against the Jets, and the Jets have a pretty good defense as well too. Chicago had their bye week after their Monday night game against Pittsburgh 2 Mondays ago. A 5-point underdog at home. Justin Fields looks better every week. Allen Robinson has done well by them. Montgomery and their other running back that replaced Montgomery, they've been really good. The tight ends have been good. Jimmy Graham made an appearance a couple of weeks ago, and he caught a touchdown pass as well too. So it's going to be a good game. Baltimore playing for the AFC North right now. Chicago's still trying to fight for a wild card spot. Those 6 lost teams are not completely out of it yet, but anything can happen between 6 and 12 in those rankings and those standings in the NFL playoff format. Philadelphia 2-43 versus the Saints. Still Trevor Siemian at quarterback. Taysom Hill is back on the roster. He caught a pass, ran a couple of balls. 43 the total. Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith. They've played well. Dallas Goedert, the tight end. Miles Sanders. They've become a big-time running team here with Miles Sanders back in the rotation for the Eagles. Saints defense, they gave up a lot of yards on the ground last week to Tennessee, and it wasn't even Derrick Henry. So very interesting game in Philadelphia. They're trying to make it back in the wild card scenario. New Orleans in 6. They're 5-4. They came off their bye. They will have the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night. So don't overlook Philadelphia, because you're going to have a short week on Thanksgiving night. You're the last game on Thursday night against those Buffalo Bills for the Saints. Tennessee -10, 44.5 against Houston. Best team in football, 8-2 right now. Best team in the AFC, 8-2. They're tied with the Packers and the Cardinals for best record overall. No Derrick Henry. We said the passing game came into effect. Ryan Tannehill in the fourth quarter threw that ball around, made it a close game. They actually had a chance probably to win that game late against the Saints. I'm sorry, the Saints had a chance to win that game late. Defense gave it up a little bit, but Tannehill throwing the ball around. 10 points against Houston. I don't like anything above 7, but this is the 1-8 Houston Texans. Tennessee's got to establish a run game at some point. They can't rely on Tannehill 100% of the time. And the last morning game for us on the West Coast morning, Green Bay 1-47 at Minnesota. The Packers at 8-2. Minnesota playing well the last 2 weeks. A win at Los Angeles against the Chargers. Overtime loss against the Ravens 2 weeks ago. They're 4-5. They're right there in the 9th spot. Again, any of these losses, they're 4-5. They're tied with the Panthers in 7th for the number of losses. So anything could happen this weekend. Let's move on to the afternoon games. 3 afternoon games to talk about, late afternoon games. Cincinnati Bengals are a 1-point favorite at Las Vegas, 50.5 the total. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. They'll lead that high-powered offense into the Raiders' lair at Allegiant Stadium, where their defense, especially their passing defense, has not been very good. And they are going to have a tough time with Joe Mixon. I don't know if I'd take the Raiders here in this situation. Cincinnati needs that game to stay in the AFC North. In the wild card scenario, they're right there as well, too. The Raiders at 5-4. This is a big game for them. They played well at home. They beat the Ravens on opening night on Monday night when they were an underdog there. They were able to get that overtime win. So we'll see. Coaching change, the Henry Ruggs situation. Last week they were at home to Kansas City. They got run out of the building by Kansas City on Sunday night. The pass defense did not look good. You got to think that Cincinnati is licking their chops to go after that pass defense. Arizona and Seattle. Arizona 2.5-point favorite, 48. Russell Wilson looked very rusty, for lack of a better word, against Green Bay last week. A 17-0 loss, 2 interceptions, both in the end zone. It could have been a closer game. Kyler Murray back after 2 weeks. Probably will be back. I shouldn't say that. 48 the total. Seattle's got to get their skill players involved. Metcalf, Lockett. Their running game's still a little sore right now, but Chris Carson there as well, too, for Seattle. They got to get the running game going here a little bit. They got to neutralize that fast Arizona defense, and Russell Wilson's got to be able to find the receivers. They've had success against Arizona. It's a division game. They've had success against Arizona at home, and to have Russell Wilson as an underdog at home seems like a bad proposition, even though the Seahawks are 3-6 right now. But Arizona, 2.5-point favorite, 48 the total. Again, we'll have our midday selections on Sunday at 3:30 Eastern for these 4 o'clock and 4:25 games. The big game of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs, 2.5 and 56.5 versus the Dallas Cowboys. We gave you all the numbers. Kansas City's pass defense, run defense, not very good, but the last few weeks they picked it up. And who was worried about the Kansas City Chiefs? You in Kansas City were? How about our friend Darren Smith in the beginning of the year? Were they worried about the Chiefs and the way they started at 1-3? And yet here they are at the top of the division, 6-4. Probably some games that they should have won. They may 4 losses might be too many for where they're at right now. But 2.5, 56.5 could be a lot of points. Could be a defensive struggle. Boy, that defense against the Raiders looked really good last week, and they had Derek Carr all confused. Dak Prescott is a little bit different type of quarterback. I don't know if Dallas wants to establish a run or get those wide receivers and Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb all involved in the offense. Dalton Schultz has become a big piece for Dak Prescott. The former Stanford tight end has had a really good year this year, and he might even make the Pro Bowl as good as he's been this year. But that's the game of the day, the Dallas Cowboys against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, 2.5 points for Kansas City. By the way, the first time, as I said in the previous segment, first time Patrick Mahomes in his career has ever been favored by less than 3 points at home in his career. And this is the credit to the Dallas Cowboys. They are at 7-2, Green Bay and Arizona, both at 8-2. The Sunday night game will be the Chargers and the Steelers in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. 6-point favorite for the Chargers, 47 the total, all depending on the health of Ben Roethlisberger. Pittsburgh played to a tie last week against Detroit. The Chargers lost to Minnesota the week before. They had a really tight game with the Bears 2 weeks ago on Monday night. We already talked about that a little bit. And the Chargers before last week, they had the Week 9 schedule. They were at Philadelphia, and they sneaked out with a victory against Philadelphia as a 1-point favorite. So a win on the road, a loss at home to two teams that they probably should have beaten. They probably should be right up there with Kansas City tied for first place, but not to be. They're 5-4. They're all even up at the top, but Kansas City with that one extra win gives them the slight advantage right now. But it's the loss column where you look at. Chargers, Steelers, Sunday night. Monday night, we'll delve into this a lot more. Tampa Bay coming off their loss against Washington last week. The New York Giants had the bye week in Week 10. Before that, they were at home. I believe they were at home. Yeah, they beat the Raiders 2 weeks ago on a Sunday. We were in Cupertino at the Britannia Arms in Cupertino watching that game. The Raiders never play well in the East. We said that all week, even though the Raiders were more talented. Giants came out with a 20-17 victory. Back to that Cincinnati-Vegas game, since we talked about the Giants beating the Raiders. Derek Carr had 2 interceptions in that game against the Giants. He had 2 interceptions last week against the Chiefs. So right now is the time to pick on Derek Carr. Cincinnati has a very good pass rush. Their secondary has been okay. The game against Baltimore, probably their best game of the year on the road, where they went 41-14. So you got to think that they're licking their chops defensively at Derek Carr. And boy, this Raiders defense, after the 41 points they give up to Kansas City, you got to think that offense is looking to run all over the place in Las Vegas. Hit a slot machine here or there. Get a Yahtzee, I guess, if they still play Yahtzee in Las Vegas. So that'll be an interesting game, even though it's not the major game in the afternoon window of games to go with. All right. When we come back in 30 seconds on the Make the Money and Run podcast, we will have all the college football action. 2 more weeks left in college football as we set up the championship Saturday, the bowl games, the BCS rankings. We'll go through all that. We hit it pretty hard yesterday, but we're going to recap it as we got games tonight. 2 top 25 teams in action tonight, and then a big slate of games tomorrow for college football Saturday. Back in 30 seconds on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vaddiparty, your solo host today. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out in Silicon Valley, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262, or the Britannia Arms of Capitola on the shores of the Pacific Ocean. Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583. Both have the Sunday ticket. Sundays are great at the Britannia Arms, especially the one in Capitola. You got the water, you got the ocean there, 20 TVs at the one in Cupertino as well, too, as we welcome you back into the studio. Vasu Vaddiparty here, your solo host. Not sure if we're going to get intern Nick Robinson on or not. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live. If you miss any of it, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud. I really like the Spotify app. I hear a lot of people talk very, very good things about the Spotify app. So I'm going to have to check that out more. Obviously, a lot of people have the Apple podcast app, but you can get them anywhere. About 10 to 15 of them, I think, we're on as far as all the podcasting applications that there are. Check out for that logo right there up in the upper right corner. We post it on our social media every day by 6 o'clock. We'll have our social media picks as well, the latest news and notes every day, Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, 11 Eastern, 3 times daily on Saturday, 3 times on Saturday, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 6:30 for the windows of college football. We haven't forgotten about the NBA or the NHL as it goes right now. The NBA and the NHL in full swing. Week 5 for the NBA, week 6 for the NHL as they get started a week ahead of time. And then we're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 3 o'clock on Mondays, 1 o'clock on Thursdays, and 1 o'clock on Fridays. Friday specifically, the Friday Football Show, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Download and subscribe if you missed the live broadcast. Pass it along to your friends. We're going to have a new daily fantasy sports website coming up next week. It's called Super Draft. You can check them out at superdraft.io. We'll have a website. I'll be involved with that as well, too. We'll have private leagues going on. You sign up for the subscriptions and you get in there as well, too. But superdraft.io is where you look at it. Download the app. Check it out. It's a lot different than the other daily fantasy sports. You get booster points, a lot more opportunities to make a little extra cash here on the side. I've used it. It works great. The payouts are very fast. You can get them to wherever you want to. We'll have more information for you come Monday with regards to that as well, too. All right, we get to the college football. We ran down all the NFL. We'll have our big picks. We'll have the ticker go across here for the BCS. Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State round out the top 4. Cincinnati, Michigan State, Michigan, 6, 7, and 8. And then you look at go on further, Texas A&M down to 16, Iowa at 17. Pitt in the ACC, they might end up in the championship game at 19. And then Houston and MSU going on to these scenarios. All right, let's look at the games here. We don't have the lines up for them, but I'll read them to you as we get to it. We got 2 top 25 games tonight. Houston at 7-0 will go up against SMU tonight. I'm sorry, they will not go up against SMU tonight. Let me find that here. They've got Memphis tonight. I believe that's what we've got. Houston has Memphis. They're a 9-point favorite, 59.5. And then Cincinnati will play tomorrow. They'll play SMU, 10.5, 65.5 in the American. Cincinnati is one less conference game. Both teams play each weekend. And so if you have Houston and you're Houston and you win your 2 games, you're going to end up winning the conference, even though Cincinnati's number 5 in the country right now. So we'll see how that works out as far as the American, but that's one of the games tonight as well. Let's go through the conferences as we have. Let me get to the top 25 schedules here, and then we'll be able to get through it here. Houston and Memphis tonight, UNLV, San Diego State. San Diego State needs to keep winning in order for them to be able to maintain that Mountain West lead here over Fresno State. Fresno State, they will get the tiebreaker if they end up with that. So San Diego State, UNLV tonight. Georgia, Charleston Southern, there's no line on it. Why are you playing Charleston Southern? I don't know. Michigan State, Ohio State, the big one this weekend. Ohio State nearly a 3-touchdown favorite. Wake Forest at Clemson. Wake Forest started 8-0. Clemson, a 4.5-point favorite against Wake Forest this weekend. Iowa State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma with the loss to Baylor. Probably put themselves out of any BCS conversation. They get Iowa State 3-5. They are tied with Oklahoma State for the conference lead. We'll get to Oklahoma State in a second as they are 10th in the BCS rankings. No line on Texas A&M, Prairie View, Tennessee State, Mississippi State, same scenario. I mean, why are you guys playing all these games later in the year? I know Mississippi State's going to get Mississippi next week in the Egg Bowl, and Ole Miss is right there in terms of the SEC. They don't really have a chance, but Alabama's got to slip up twice in order for Mississippi to come in. Illinois, Iowa, that game will be 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Iowa, 12.5-point favorite. They're right there in the Big Ten West, along with Minnesota. They play Minnesota the following week. Wisconsin also in the mix there as well, tied with Iowa for the conference lead in the Western Division of the Big Ten. Notre Dame, number 9 in the BCS. They're 17-point favorite against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has Notre Dame this week, and they've got their in-state rival, the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs, next Saturday as well. Arkansas, Alabama. Alabama, number 2 in the country, 9-1. Their only loss to Texas A&M. That's the only thing that's going to help Texas A&M is if Alabama loses twice and Texas A&M wins twice, because that's the only way that Texas A&M is going to end up being able to get ahead of Alabama due to the tiebreaker. SMU, Cincinnati, we talked about that a little bit. Cincinnati, number 5 in the BCS, but they may not even win their own conference if Houston wins 2 games, regardless of what Cincinnati does. Michigan, coming off the big win at Penn State, they're going to be at Maryland. Maryland lost to Michigan State last week as well, too. 15.5-point favorite for Michigan. Interesting game in Madison tomorrow. Wisconsin, 9.5-point favorite against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They've had their moments this year, have Nebraska. Wisconsin does not score a lot. It's 10 points a lot, but that defense for Wisconsin, very, very good. And this is an opportunity for them to keep their Big Ten West lead for the Badgers in Madison. Virginia at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, very underappreciated, talked about team as far as not only the ACC, but also in the country. They are 19th, 18th in the BCS rankings. They have Virginia tomorrow. Virginia, the only team that can catch them in their division of the ACC. A win by Pittsburgh, and they will be pretty much in the championship game for the ACC in 2 weeks from now. 14.5-point favorite on Virginia. Virginia's offense, they can score. They can score, though, so Pittsburgh's going to have to be aware of that. And Kenny Pickett has put up a lot of points this year, so I'm sure it'll be a high-scoring game. 66, I believe, was the total on that. Texas San Antonio, 10-0. They're 4.5-point favorite against UAB tomorrow. I don't know much about Texas San Antonio. Wish we could get some more of their games on there, because they're going to be a factor come bowl season in terms of where we're going. BYU, a 20-point favorite over Georgia Southern. They're still working out their opportunities here to try and make a move to get a higher ranking in the BCS ranking. Syracuse, NC State, ACC game. NC State 11.5 over Syracuse. Baylor, a 1-point underdog at Kansas State. Kansas State's played well these last 3 or 4 weeks. They've won their games at home. They get a slight favorite over Baylor. Of course, Baylor coming off the Oklahoma upset. They're 11th in the BCS, and a lot of things have to fall. A lot of dominoes have to fall in order for Baylor to move up into those rankings. Vanderbilt, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 35.5-point favorite on Vanderbilt. Then they get the Egg Bowl next week. They are looking at an outside shot at the SEC West as well. They got hammered by Alabama early in the year, so that's not going to help them. 2 games left to talk about, one in the Big 12, one in the Pac-12. Oklahoma State, number 9 in the BCS rankings. They're a 10-point favorite at Texas Tech. The Cowboys have been great. Mike Gundy has had a defense this year that will knock the socks off of anybody. They beat Boise State on the road. They've gone into other Big 12 cities. They beat Texas in a big comeback fashion on the road. They are very good. They can run the ball. I'm not sold on Spencer Johnson as a quarterback, but their defense and their running game, they're going to be on Fox tomorrow. They're the primetime game on Fox at Texas Tech, who's had some moments at home, and a 10-point underdog at home, and in a conference rivalry that it is. This will be a big one. Oklahoma State needs this game to stay in it, because next week they get the Red River shootout with Oklahoma, and both teams tied. A win by either team, if both teams stay tied, will end up giving the Big 12 championship, the regular season championship, to one of the 2 teams. But right now it's Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. And in the Pac-12, Oregon looks like they're going to wrap up the North. Utah is trying to hold off Arizona State in the South. They've beaten Arizona State already. In fact, they thumped Arizona State early in the year, middle of the year, Saturday night. They beat them by 18 points, 34-16 over Herm Edwards' crew. It's a big game for Utah. It's not as big a game for Oregon. I'll take that back. Let me take that back. Oregon, number 3 in the BCS rankings. It's a huge game for Oregon if they want to get into the BCS championship. Here's the interesting part about it, because they've already clinched the North. How do you play the game? Utah is very fired up. They want that South Division championship so they can play probably Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. But here's the interesting part about the game is Utah is favored by 3 points. You would think the number 3 BCS ranked team would be favored even on the road. But no, the Utah Utes, who've had a very good year, are 3-point favorites, and they will host the Oregon Ducks this weekend. It's a primetime game, 7:30 Eastern on ABC. 23 is the ranking for Utah, and, of course, 3 for Oregon. They're just ahead of Ohio State. Ohio State has Michigan State, so things could flip-flop based on what happens this week in Columbus and in Salt Lake City for the University of Utah. Big Pac-12 game there as well. We see the BCS rankings go at the bottom. Let's just go through the scenarios here real quick before we wrap up. In the ACC, Wake Forest leads the Atlantic. Pitt 5-1 in the Coastal. They play UVA this weekend. Big 12, we talked about Oklahoma State. Baylor 5-2 still have a shot there as well. Oklahoma versus Iowa State. And then the Red River shootout with Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Oklahoma State will be at Texas Tech tomorrow night, as we said. The Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan State, 3-touchdown favorite, nearly a 3-touchdown favorite for Ohio State against Michigan State. I don't know if they've seen Michigan State play. They can run the ball. They put up a lot of points. They did beat Maryland. I don't think the committee was impressed with Maryland. They kept them below Michigan as well. Michigan with that road victory at Penn State. Speaking of Michigan, they're at Maryland, who just came off the Michigan State loss. Michigan State will be, Maryland, Michigan and Maryland, Mississippi State, Penn State. Wait a second here. We got Penn State playing somebody here, and I'm trying to remember who they've got. The acronyms are all there. Penn State will have Rutgers. I'm sorry, not Michigan State. Michigan State's going to play Ohio State. Penn State will have Rutgers this weekend as well, too. And then we said the West, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, all vying for that West spot. Pac-12, we talked about Oregon, number 3 in the country. Utah, that's a huge game. They're playing each other. Oregon State will be, they'll play Colorado. ASU will have Oregon State. And then they'll have Arizona, their in-state rival, the following week. So some things could possibly change in the Pac-12. The SEC, all wrapped up by Georgia. They win the East. The West, Alabama will probably win the West. Arkansas and Auburn, Mississippi needs Alabama to lose twice and win versus Vanderbilt, and the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. That game is a very interesting game. That Egg Bowl has always been a fascinating game as well. And then we talked about the Mountain West Conference. Utah State, 5-1. They've got Wyoming and New Mexico, Air Force and Boise State. They're 4-2. That's the Mountain Conference, a Mountain Division. San Diego State 5-1. Fresno State 5-2. Bulldogs have the tiebreaker. San Diego State has UNLV tonight. They're a 10-point favorite at UNLV tonight. And then the Fresno State Bulldogs have – Fresno State has a bye week this week. They're not playing this week. And then their last game of the year, they will be at San Jose State on Thanksgiving Thursday, actually. So they'll be there on Thanksgiving Thursday. I will be in Seattle, so I will not see my alma mater on Thanksgiving Thursday against Fresno State. But it's a big game for Fresno State. Spartans will have to try and pull off the upset. San Diego State will have Boise State on Friday morning, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. in San Diego. They're going to play a 9 a.m. game in San Diego on Thanksgiving Friday. Holy cow. Hope you don't eat that much, fellas, because that's an early start for a game. I know CBS wants it, but boy, that's an early start, 9 a.m. for San Diego State and Fresno State. We'll let you know about scheduling changes for next week with the Thanksgiving week coming up. I have the Apple Cup game. I have USC, UCLA this weekend. I'll be working out of a studio up here in the Bay Area, so hopefully I'll be able to check out some of the Cal Stanford game up in the East Bay. Thanks to the Channel 2 people for allowing me to use the studio. Thanks to the Channel 35 people in Monterey for allowing me to use their studio all college football year and all baseball year for our Saturday baseball coverage and the Pac-12 football coverage that we have. I don't know what we're going to do for college basketball, but I hope when January rolls around, we start traveling a little bit because I'm interested to see all the Pac-12 basketball that we have. All right, looks like we have no intern Nick. Don't forget to check us out, 6 o'clock Eastern, every day during the week. Every day during the week, 6 o'clock Eastern for the selections of the latest news. On Saturdays, we go at 11 Eastern. We go at 3 o'clock Eastern. We go at 6:30 Eastern for the 3 sets of games for college football. Again, we don't forget about the NBA and NHL, but we dedicate Fridays to the Friday football show. Of course, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you happen to miss this live show, thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live. Pass it along to your friends. The Britannia Arms of Capitola, 10 years on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, located on the end of the Capitola Village. Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola. You can get them at 831-464-2583. Sundays are outstanding there, especially with that beach weather. Sunday ticket, you get all the games you want over there. Last Sunday was amazing. We did our live show there. I'll be back after Thanksgiving at some point. We'll pick a Sunday. We'll go down there. We hope to see everybody there live, or else come visit online with us. I'll make sure I have the invite address for that as well, too, to jump online. The Britannia Arms in Cupertino, right on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. 20 TVs they have there available for you. So check out the best British pub and restaurant in Northern California in the Britannia Arms Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. All right, we made it 55 minutes in. A lot to talk about. We'll see you at 6 o'clock on social media today for the latest news and our social media picks. Again, tomorrow, Saturday, 11 Eastern, 3 o'clock Eastern, and 6:30 Eastern for our Make the Money and Run podcast minute with all our latest news and posts. And then on Sunday, noon Eastern, and 3:30 Eastern for the 2 sets of windows for football. The second one being all day again. We don't forget about the NBA and the NHL. Fantasy football questions. Fantasy football, look for some of the big stars to come back this week. The Cleveland Browns will have everybody back. Russell Wilson will not be as rusty as he was last week against the Green Bay Packers. Some of the other fantasy football notes here before we get to it. The Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's a good bet against the Indianapolis Colts as the quarterback there. The Chicago Bears, you look at Allen Robinson, they can throw the ball. Justin Fields is a good, solid pick for the Bears this week as a quarterback. Whether they're behind or whether he throws the ball, they'll be there. The Lions, 0-8-1, 11.5-point underdogs. Look at them as well in terms of straight wagering. Take the Lions plus 11.5. The Titans trying to maintain the best record in football, 8-2, tied with Green Bay and Arizona at 8-2. They will host the Houston Texans. Packers, Vikings, big game for the Vikings, big game for the Packers if they want to maintain the number 1 seed. They have the tiebreaker over the Arizona Cardinals. Dolphins, Jets, Saints, Eagles is a big game. 49ers, Jaguars is a big game for San Francisco. Bengals, Raiders in Las Vegas. Cardinals, Seahawks, an NFC West division game. Russell Wilson has never been under 500 in his life. They're 3-6. Or never ended a season under 500, so you got to think that there's a little bit more juice in Russ, and will they let him cook? We'll find out with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins back for them as well, too. Steelers, Chargers on Sunday night, Giants, Buccaneers on Monday night. The big game, the Cowboys, Chiefs, Sunday afternoon, 4:25. Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, the talent that the Chiefs have against the defensive talent the Cowboys have, and then vice versa for the Cowboys against the Chiefs, who the defense has played better the last few weeks. So lots of fantasy sports to talk about here. Yeah, the main quarterbacks you have, the main running backs. We're at week 11 now. So you pretty much know what your rosters are going to look like. But those little tiny tweaks that you make for the money in terms of fantasy, and don't forget the daily fantasy sports. And don't forget to download the Super Draft app, or go online, check out superdraft.io. But on your phone, download the Super Draft app. You will not be disappointed. We'll make sure we get the website out there on Monday as well, and download it using my website, superdraft.io/Vparty Sports is what it is. We'll have that for you next week, and I'll make sure we bring it up on Monday. All right, NFL, NCAA, we got it all set up for you for the weekend. The Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola. We will see you on Monday live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, 3 o'clock Eastern. 12 o'clock on the West Coast. We'll try and get some guests. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Thanksgiving week coming up. Don't forget to keep up with us on social media, 6 o'clock Eastern today for the latest news and latest selections for a hashtag Selection Friday. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me today. We will see you again very soon. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday, and take care. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast for this Friday, November 19th, 2021. Have a great weekend.